Hey everyone, Austin here again doing a backer only video. I know it's been a little while since I've done one of these. I've been wanting to do more recently, but I've been just caught up in other things, both irresponsible and not. But yeah, I've actually had my Sega Genesis, Sega CD, and 32X out recently. I've been doing some beta testing on Doom 32X Resurrection. Which is going to be a CD-based version of the Resurrection conversion for 32X that came out a year or two ago. And so yeah, looking forward to showing that off in my channel. But since I've been testing that, I've had to have all three pieces of equipment in order to get that to work. And so yeah, I figured since I had it all out, this would be a good time to do a backer-only video where I just kind of show off how you hook all these things up. Now, I'm not going to go into details on like how you plug the AC adapter in or how you plug the video cable in, but there are some interesting things to mention with the Sega CD and the 32X in particular. This one is the most complicated if you've never actually had one before, and if you're thinking about buying one eventually or getting one for your collection and you want to actually use it, then some of the information I'm about to give will probably be pretty handy to you. And for those of you guys that already have these, well, maybe you just like watching hardware porn like this. And I mean, when you got a Sega CD Model 1 in the frame, it's like, whew, doesn't get much better than that, man, although it could be a little bit cleaner. I need to see if I can clean this up a little bit. This has actually been out for a while. This has been my main Sega CD for at least the better part of a year and a half now. I put my Sega CD Model 2 back in its box, and so I've been rocking the Model 1 because this has always been like a grail item for me. So now that I've got it, I've been using it a lot, and so it's gotten dusty again and whatnot. So first things first, if you're going to connect the Genesis to a Sega CD, whether it's a Model 1 or Model 2 Sega CD, you can do it to either model. Genesis Model 1 can fit on a Model 2. Model 2 Genesis, which we have right here, can fit on a Model 1 Sega CD. It just doesn't look as good. Now, interestingly, I just found out while doing this, because I never actually used this on a Model 1, but the Sega CD units actually come with these metal plates, and the purpose of them is to basically be tightened to the Genesis console. There's like a screw hole in the back, which kind of keeps the console in place when connected to the Sega CD. Otherwise, it can, when you connect the console here to the edge connector on the Sega CD, they can come loose, and if it comes loose during gameplay, like if the console's jiggled, a game can freeze or crash or something like that. So it basically ensures the most solid connection on the Sega CD. So what you would do is attach your Genesis to this and then drop it in here, like so, and then the console would be attached to it. However, from what I found, this plate specifically for the Model 1 is something that you use with a Model 1 Genesis. That's what it was designed around. Because remember, when the Model 1 Sega CD came out, this guy didn't exist. This guy existed when the Model 2 Sega CD came around. So I actually tried installing this plate on the Model 2 Genesis, and it just would not fit. So, however, with that said, here's my Model 2 Sega CD, and here is the plate for the Model 2 Sega CD. And it's actually a little bit easier to figure out which way it goes, because you'll notice that there's a little bit of a cutout here in the plastic that is shaped after this metal piece. So what ends up happening here is we will take the Genesis Model 2 and we will put the plate on, just like so. If I can find the holes, that's what she said. There's a screw hole right here. The Sega CD does come with a screw, so you can screw this down and then the plate doesn't go anywhere. And what's cool about the plate on the Model 2 Sega CD is that these metal lips and teeth, they actually go in underneath the edge connector here, and then you get a really tight fit. Unfortunately, since I didn't have it screwed in, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get it in here. But basically, it just ends up fitting in flush if you get it right, just like that. And now you've got a nice connected Genesis with Sega CD Model 2 connected. And if I try to wiggle it, it's not really moving because of that metal plate. Now, again, you don't actually need the metal plate. Some people don't know this, but you don't actually need the metal plate. But if you don't have the metal plate, and it's actually clicked in, so there we go. Now it's clicked out. And if you don't have the metal plate and you install it, it is like you can hear it wiggling back and forth. It's more likely to lose connection if you bump it or something like that. It's very subtle up here, but you know, if you get a Sega CD, don't worry about it not having the metal plate, but if you do have the metal plate, you definitely want to use it. So back to the Model 1. For any Genesis console, basically you would just connect it right in here to the edge connector of the Sega CD. Clicks in, and then that is basically it. Now, ideally, you want to have a Genesis Model 1 with the Sega CD Model 1, just because it was designed to be paired with a Model 1. The Model 1 Genesis or Mega Drive will be flush on this side. Otherwise, it looks kind of goofy with a Model 2. Also, on the back side of the Model 1 Sega CD and Model 2 Sega CD, actually, you have a line in. And basically what this feeds from the audio from the Genesis Model 1's headphone port. And that's actually really interesting because what ends up happening is you're basically feeding the Model 1 audio backwards into the Sega CD. It's called the mixing port, or it comes with a mixing cable. Standard, you know, like 1/8 inch sort of headphone style jack. And you can actually use the Genesis Model 1's volume controls to adjust the Genesis side audio, which is really interesting because some CD games, the CD music kind of overpowers the gameplay, or vice versa. The Genesis audio overpowers the CD audio. And so if the Genesis stuff is too loud, you can pull it down just a little bit. You're mixing. So it's a really interesting feature. You don't get that with the Genesis Model 2. And so... yeah. So the next most complicated thing, however, is the Sega 32X. Now the 32X itself has kind of a lot going on. It's this little device, and it's got a lot of little attachments and stuff like that and things to talk about. So ultimately with the 32X, what you do is you just pop it right in, just like that. And then you've got a 32X attached to your Genesis Model 2. But hey, wait a second, that looks a little weird. There's a big gap right there. What's going on with that? Well, in the box for the 32X, you have what's called the spacer. So remember, when 32X came out, you had the Genesis Model 1 and Model 2, so they had to compensate for both. So by default, the 32X is meant to sit flush with the Model 1, but in the box it comes with the spacer, which allows you to let it sit flush with the Model 2 Genesis. So just plug it in like that, and there we go. So now it looks natural, you know, since you have the spacer. There are a lot of 32Xs on eBay and stuff like that that don't have these accessories, and people get their 32Xs and it looks really goofy. So yeah, that's actually quite interesting. Now, one more thing I wanted to talk about, and there's actually a couple more things, is this guy right here. I've already forgotten what this is called, but basically what you do with this is you populate the Sega CD expansion edge connector with this piece. And the reason for that is, and this is only if you don't have a Sega CD attached, certain Model Genesis 2 consoles, maybe even some Model 1s, I don't know, but my Model 2 specifically, will not work with the 32X. Games will crash almost instantly when you load them up if this port is not populated. It's like it's a known hardware glitch. Sega included this because they knew that was an issue, and as long as you populate the expansion port, it works fine. So apparently these are pretty hard to find, but also if you have a Sega CD, as I do right here, it serves the same purpose. And that's actually one reason why I didn't know this was incompatible with my 32X until like 10 years after I got this 32X, because I always had to connect it to a Sega CD. So, but yeah, that's an interesting feature that's actually really good to know. Now, there's one more thing I wanted to talk about, and the infamous metal clips that also come with the 32X. Now, these are actually a little more important than I think people realize. You don't have to have them, kind of like you don't need the metal plate on the Sega CD. You don't need the metal plates on the cartridge connectors for the 32X. However, when you plug the 32X in, it is actually like, it's quite wobbly. Like, you can see me just like moving it back and forth, especially if you don't have the spacer. Like, let's leave the spacer out, and it's very loose. Now, Sega, in the instruction manual, I do believe they say they included these metal clips for RF, you know, interference and stuff like that. But what I think they were actually included for was to create a more secure connection here, because even with the spacer, the 32X still just kind of wobbles all over the place in the port. And if you just give it a slight nudge, you bump your console, games will freeze completely, and obviously that's not a good experience. And so ideally you want these things, these metal clips. Now they are a little awkward to get in, so both of them have 4 teeth that go upwards, so those are the ones that point up, and then the bottom teeth basically grab onto the cartridge flap here. So now I believe the smaller one actually goes up front because there's a weird curve that's happening there. And then use the bigger one in the back where you have more space on the flat edge. So let's just try to put that in. Now I've done this 100 times over the years, but trust me when I say this is a really fickle process that's actually pretty difficult to do. It's a lot harder when you've already got one in there. All right, looks like I got it. And so you can see the it's like someone with braces. But yeah, you'll notice that with these clips in there, there's a lot less room for the you know, the 32X to wobble around. It basically like smallens the cartridge port size. So let's go ahead and slap that in. Just like that. And now, ooh yeah, 32X is like way more solid in there. So if you bump it, there's a much less likelihood of it actually rattling and freezing or crashing your game. Final thing to talk about, and this is also extremely important for the 32X, is the AV cable. Now, not the AV cable that goes to your TV, but basically what this does is this is a pass-through cable. The Genesis and 32X, they both have to work in conjunction. So what happens is the Genesis basically feeds its video output into the 32X, and then the 32X does its stuff and like layers it on top of whatever the Genesis feeds it. And then you use an AV cable to go out to your television from the 32X. So yeah, that should come with the unit. However, you will find a lot of 32X systems that do not have it. And but all you do is you just plug it in, just like, you know, a regular AV cable, and the other end goes into your Genesis or Mega Drive. And that's it, just like that. So this is mandatory if you want to play 32X games. You have to have that. The metal clips and the spacer, not so much, and the you know, termination connector, whatever you want to call it, not so much as well. Depending on if you have a compatible model or not, or if you have a Sega CD already. And let's get this all plugged in, because I am going to play this in a little bit. I'm going to do some more testing for Doom 32X. And but yeah, there you go, guys. That's the Tower of Power. Actually, you know, feet. I hate these memes, but I had that out already. I did buy Sonic & Knuckles the other day. That's the real Tower of Power. Actually, it technically needs a Game Genie underneath it. And then maybe one of those, like, weird, like, cartridges that have, like, multiplayer adapters on them. I don't know. Anyway, that's basically it, guys. That's all I wanted to show off. I thought it would be fun to do this. Not a very long video, not a whole lot of editing or anything necessary, but yeah, like I said, I'm going to do more testing on this, and so it was already out, and I wanted to show off kind of like the process for hooking it up. Because there are people that get 32X in particular, and they're like, I don't really understand what to do with this thing, you know. Not many 32X systems these days come with instruction manuals. mine does, because I have the box and everything. I bought it complete a long time ago. Oh, also, the one thing I wanted to mention is that you can actually route the audio for the Sega CD out separately. So, you know, you can run your AV into your, just your television as usual, but you can also route the Sega CD stuff into like a separate speaker system, which is actually pretty cool. And another good reason to actually use the mixer cable, because if you don't have the mixer cable and you have a Genesis Model 1, I don't think the Genesis properly feeds like the CD audio to the television through the Genesis AV port. I think you have to use these if you have a Model 1 Genesis on a Model 1 Sega CD. Model 2 Genesis, it passes everything through. I'm not sure how that works, but I do recall there being issues with using a Model 1 on a Model 1 Sega CD, and but I'm using a Model 2 right now, so it just passes everything, CD audio and Genesis audio, through the AV cable. So something to keep in mind. Also, the Sega CD Model 2, it is designed for Model 2 Genesis consoles, and so the Genesis Model 1 does sit off the side. There is a extender that comes with the Model 2 Sega CD if you buy one complete. I do have the extender, but it's in my closet in my Model 2 box, so I didn't want to pull it out. And that also has a metal clip or a metal plate that will cross over between the adapter and the console itself, and there's screw holes on each side, and that keeps the basically the extender like attached to the side nice and solid with the Genesis Model 1 on top of it. So I don't recommend a Genesis Model 1 with the Sega CD Model 2 because it's just so long. It's like one of the longest systems I think I've ever seen. Whereas with the Model 1 Sega CD, it is I mean, look at that. So like the Genesis Sega CD Model 2 with the Model 1 Genesis would come out to about here, just like this. And so that is just, you know, you got to have a lot of shelf space for that. But yeah, that's it, guys. I thought that would be fun to show off. Feel free to drop some comments down below. I'd really appreciate it. It doesn't help like YouTube stats or anything like that, because this is just going to be basically just for backers only, and people on Patreon are going to get this directly uploaded to Patreon as well. But I do want to hear from you guys, and you know, hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and I'm going to try to make a couple of other backer only quick and easy videos, whatnot, sometime soon, so watch out for those. I do appreciate your continued support. I know I haven't been putting out much dedicated content lately. Life is still kind of a little bit of a wreck since all the personal life stuff that happened back in March, and you know, the whole family's still reeling from that. And it's just a lot of things. It's complicated. People that have been through it before will understand what I'm talking about. I'm not asking for sympathy or anything. I'm just trying to explain like why I'm not pumping out content as fast as I used to. Burnout's also a real thing too. But I did actually practice a bunch of NES games about a week and a half ago as of doing this video. And you know, I did just do a live stream last night on YouTube, which was nice, with some Sega CD stuff actually. And but yeah, more stuff is to come for sure. And hopefully I can get the output up a little more frequently again, closer to where it used to be. But regardless, I appreciate your support, and you know, that's why I want to do these backer only videos. I want to try to give back to you guys that are actually like giving me money every month, and so thank you very much for that. Trust me when I say it has helped me out a lot. Yeah, so I seriously appreciate it. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this one, and until the next one, guys, take it easy.